Hey there, Clear Lake peeps. Ross England with Clear Lake Guide Service with your fishing report for what will be the first report of September. I believe it'll be 9/2, September 2nd, 2021. We're cutting this year down. I'll tell you what, it's flying by. Okay, hope everything's going well with you. We've got our little buddy is back out. This is only the second time she's been out this summer because of the heat. Little Gracie, you may see her wandering around here while we're filming this. So, let's get right to it. First and foremost, thing that most of you are interested in, launch ramp conditions. I think I said it last week and I'll say it from this point forward. There's 3 primary ramps that are currently still available. Redbud, the Rattlesnake Arm down at Clear Lake Oaks, and 5th Street Launch Ramp in Lakeport. 2 of those, which is Redbud and Clear Lake Oaks, there's signs up, use at your own risk. And believe me, I've heard stories where people have run into problems. Some people are getting by just fine. The only one that I know right now that's 100% safe is Lakeport. So, and I'm going to say that they've probably got at least another foot of water that the lake could come down where it'll still be usable. Now the parking there in Lakeport is a mess, you know, with all the construction that's going on, but that's just the way it is. So there's your launch ramp conditions. Lake level, we are at a negative 1.6 Rumsey. For the month of August, the lake dropped 0.6 of a foot, so it'll probably be at least that the month of September. So just projecting out, we're probably looking at minus 2.1, minus 2.2 for the end of next month. We need some rain pretty badly. I think the ramps are going to be usable through the end of September for sure, possibly October. There's been some conversation of, you know, putting some dock extensions, you know, the portable type, in so that the docks could still be usable, but you still have to keep in mind that even though they put a dock extension in, let's say on 5th Street, there's still, you know, 25 yards out, there's still only 2.5 feet of water out there. So it's going to be dicey any way you cut it. So water, let's talk about algae. Pretty much, now I'm gonna be really upfront with y'all and tell you I haven't been out that much. All the activity that I had scheduled for last week I canceled because of just too much doggone smoke. I've got enough stuff going on that I don't really need to come out here and subject myself to a new load of problems due to smoke. So I wasn't out there. I was out Tuesday, and it really wasn't that bad. But the algae around the lake, and I didn't run the entire lake, not bad at all. I just didn't see any problems with it. And I think part of that comes from just the amount of smoke cover that we've had. But there wasn't anywhere that I went to that was gummed up or that I thought was a mess to where this is going to not be good to fish in. So that's an improvement. I'm not going to say that the water clarity's, you know, doing that much, but in some areas around the lake you can see 2 feet, 2.5 feet. So it's really not bad. This is the time of year that the weeds start dying off and you'll start seeing them disappearing. For those of you who've been making a living basically just fishing offshore weed mats, they've already started disappearing, but it'll be in earnest over the next couple of weeks. It's just something that happens every year. So There's your water clarity, water temperature. We've had some cooler mornings, and those cooler mornings have impacted the water temperature, and it's actually headed down a little bit. So what I saw today was 76, 77, 78, in that range. But the important thing was I didn't see any 80-degree water. Not saying it's not out there, but I didn't see any of it. So that's going to be a good thing. Once this water starts to cool off a little bit, it starts triggering these fish, and they'll start getting a little bit more active. Once these weed beds start disappearing, then they've got to go to the bank. It'll be a little bit easier to find. Although right now it's not that hard to find them. Find a weed mat that's got fish, and you just found fish. So let's see. That's temperature, level, and clarity. So that pretty much does it for the conditions. Smoke has been a real big issue here, obviously. The fires up north have funneled in here. In fact, right now I'm looking over at Konocti, and you can only see halfway up the hill. The other half is buried in smoke. Down here at lake level, it's not that bad, but we've had a couple of days where the AQI was 150, 160 in that range, which is not good. It was 155 yesterday morning, and then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, with a little shift of wind, it dropped down to 20. And that's kind of what's going on. You just can't project what's going to happen as far as how bad the smoke's going to be, or how good it's going to be. So we're just going to be dealing with this for another couple weeks, and hopefully another big fire won't start. As far as fishing's concerned, this is kind of a short-sighted fishing report because I just haven't been out that much. I can tell you that the fish that I am still catching are shallow. I mean, like really shallow, 2 to 3 feet. Caught them on. We're still catching some topwater fish. Throwing some. It's all been reaction baits. I haven't thrown a worm at all in the last 2 weeks. So it's all been either topwater or subsurface reaction, rattle baits, little underspins, frogs. That's pretty much been it. So, and I expect that to continue. Probably the rattle bait bite will get a little bit better. That's something that always happens here in the fall. But right now, I'm not doing anything fancy with it. Just out there pitching it around and just, a standard retrieve. I'm not yo-yoing it or anything like that. I just haven't found those places yet to be able to do that. So, those of you trying to get into the guide service, September is kind of a mess, and I apologize for that. October is pretty good during most of the month. The first 2 weekends of October had tournaments scheduled, and both of them rescheduled elsewhere. So the first half of October is probably going to be really fun up here, assuming we can still get on the lake, which I think we'll be able to. Then once you start getting into the mid part of October and into the first weeks of November, there's going to be some pretty big weekend events, 2 and 3 day events. That'll be a lot of boats. It's going to be a real challenge for everybody's patience when that takes place, because you're going to be a fun fisherman showing up to go fishing, and you're going to go to the Fifth Street launch ramp and find out that you have to park a half a mile away to be able to park your truck after you've launched. There's decent parking up by Fifth Street, but let's face it, it's not set up for 100 plus boats. So, but I really do think that October is going to be a good month. It's really interesting. I'm more than a little bit concerned about the lack of big fish, and just so you don't think this is egocentric just about me, I really don't pay that much attention to what I catch. What I look at is tournament results, because that's the broadest group of anglers and the biggest sampling that you can get. out here on the lake. I don't care whether there's 20 boats or 100 boats. You've got some people who can compete with anybody. You've got people who are just starting it, just beginning to try to figure out bass fishing in general, but much less tournament fishing. And then you got a group in the middle. And my point to that is that if there's a lot of big fish around, there's going to be some weighed in, and we're just not seeing them. And I'm not really seeing a ton of offshore weeds like in a normal year. So it's real easy when nobody's catching these big fish to say, well, they're all out in the weed beds and nobody's found them yet. Well, the weed beds are only about half of what they normally are. So I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's going on, but I'd sure like to see some bigger fish show up, this fall. They're sorely missed right now. I had a fish last week that was pushing 7. That's the biggest fish that we've had in probably 3 months. So even though it's summertime, you usually, you'll run into, especially throwing topwater, you'll run into a big fish here and there. We just haven't done it this year, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble. That's your conditions report, your fishing report. Remember this upcoming weekend, Labor Day weekend. There are no events scheduled that I saw on my calendar. So it's a free weekend. I don't know how busy it's going to be up here, with it being a little bit harder to get to and a little bit smokier to deal with. Could be a busy weekend, may not. So don't know where you're going, but if you're coming here, good luck to you. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.